Well, 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 well. What's going on? What's going on? What is going on? Hey, this is Gliding on Tubes coming back at you with another video. Yes, sirree. Yes, sirree. We're going to talk about preparing for a long distance ride. Stay tuned. Hey, so what's going on? What is going on? I'm just taking a casual stroll, going down and doing some errands. But what I wanted to talk about today was preparing for long distance rides. How many of you have conducted rides longer than 500 miles in one day? Go ahead and comment down below. Comment down below if you've conducted 500 plus miles in a day. But yeah, in doing so, you know, I have a couple things I conduct or I do perform before any long trips. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. But to better show you, instead of just talking through it and not showing you, to better do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you back to the cave, and I'm going to show you and talk about and talk through what I do and what I perform before I attempt my long distance rides. So let's go straight to the cave. Alright, I made it back here to the cave just to bring you a good view picture of the bike and how I conduct basically my pre-inspections for riding. How many of you have heard of the acronym T-CLOCS? Alright, I'll put it somewhere up here. Alright, the acronym. Alright, so that's what I use before going on any long distance rides. Okay, so, and I'm going to go line by line on what each letter stands for. So the first one is T in the T-CLOCS. That one stands for tires and wheels. All right, to prepare yourself for long distance rides, one of the first things you should do is check your tires and wheels. What I mean when you check your tires, you're checking the condition of the tires, which is you're checking the tread depth of your tires. And to go along with that, make sure you're checking for proper air pressure within your tires. Now for me, I like to ride with 36 up front and then 40 in the rear. Now I know, you know, there's people use all different kinds of air pressure in there, but that's what I use. 36 up front, 40 in the rear. And you know, I've never had an issue, never had a problem, and my tires last a pretty good long time for that. Now when you're checking your wheels, all right, your wheels is your rims. Now if you have spoke wheels, what you want to do is check for either bent, cracked, or missing spokes, checking for tightness. You're checking for any bends or cracks along the rim portion of that wheel. And then and just ensuring that everything is good to go on those aspects, because that is what's touching the ground on your bike. The next, what you want to check that goes into tires and wheels, is your brake system. All right, you want to check proper brake fluid, making sure it's good to go. You want to make sure your front brakes are operational, and then also your rear brakes, making sure those are operational and you know they don't have any pinches in the lines, or you know hoses or whatnot. Just make sure you're going up and down and looking at those parts. So that is the T in T-CLOCS. Now the next letter in T-CLOCS is C. So that stands for controls. What you want to make sure on controls is that you're checking your handlebars. All right, making sure your handlebars are not loose, they're properly adjusted to how you ride and the settings that you like it for on long distance rides. You also want to check all your levers. Like I said, you want to check your clutch, your brakes again, any all your levers, all your switches, and your buttons on your handlebars. You might want to make sure all of those are operational as well. All right. What goes along with that is I have a cable clutch. Okay, so you checking your cables along here. You checking your master cylinder cables. All right, and just also the throttle. All right. So some people don't never check the throttle. You got to make sure for proper adjustment and alignment on your throttle. You want to make sure nothing's sticking, and it's when you hit the throttle, you let go, it snaps right back into place. All right, that's another thing, that's very important, because why? You're using your throttle most of the time, right? Unless you're on cruise control. I don't use cruise control even for long distance rides. I like to operate my motorcycle without using cruise control. All right, so I'm going over these really quickly, but what I'm going to do is post the link to the actual T-CLOCS inspection sheet in my descriptions down below, so that way you could open it up and you can have an inspection sheet of your own to look at it more in depth and go over it yourself, when time allows. All right, the next letter in T-CLOCS is L. L stands for lights and electrics. Okay, the first step into checking this category is your battery. You want to check the condition of your battery. Make sure you check it, lift up the seat. You checking the terminals, making sure the terminals are clean, they're nice and tight, and your battery is held down securely as well. You want to check any vent tubes, making sure those are not kinked, routed in properly, or not plugged in. That's for battery. Your next step in that is your headlamp. You want to check the condition of the headlamp, making sure it's not cracked, it's aimed properly, you have it at the right setting, because you can tweak your headlight in up and down direction on how well you like it. What's your visibility? You like it more up, middle, or low? You can actually tweak that. So you want to check your headlight, making sure your headlight properly works. Everything's connected, and the adjustment, either up and down, left and right, is in line with how you want it. You also want to check your tail lamps, making sure your running lamp is working, your brake lights are working, and your turn signals are working, front and rear. Okay, front and rear, making sure they're fully operational and they're flashing correctly. Next step is your switches. I said that before in the controls, but I always do double checks. So I do it also for lights and electrics. You want to check all your switches on here to make sure they're operating correctly and the way you want them to before you get out on that road. Mirrors as well. You want to check your mirrors. If you saw one of my last videos, I was making my errands. One of my mirrors were loose. Okay, I didn't check it. I don't do these checks every day. Okay, I usually do these checks on a monthly basis. And it just caught me that time. I saw that my mirror was loose, and of course I came back home and retightened that up. All right, you want to check all your reflectors, your lenses, making sure you have them all, because sometimes these lenses on your turn signals, and if you have them for the rear, they pop off. Okay, they have a habit of popping off. If they break, then of course your light's not going to stick in there if you have LED lights. What I have is custom Dynamics LED lights for turn signals. Now, if you have the regular halogen bulbs, you're good to go, but you're always going to need that lens. All right, you're always going to need that lens. And then what you want to also do is check all your wiring and the condition and the routing of your wires. So I like to always take my seat off, making sure all my wires are good to go. They're not too close to the battery terminal where it's going to cause some friction in there and possibly get burnt. No fraying, no chafing, making sure they're all properly insulated. Those are the type of things that you need to look for, especially if you're going long distance, okay? Because you don't want to get out there on the road and you're 100, 200 miles away from anything, and your bike breaks down because you didn't do proper maintenance on your motorcycle before you headed out on the road. All right. Next letter, O. O stands for oils and other fluids. Now, what you want to check, I said it before about the brake fluid, but what you want to check is make sure all your oil levels are good to go, meaning your engine oil. All right, you want to check the engine oil. Now, of course, I have a Street Glide. Every bike is different, and the placement of where you can check. For mine, this is a 13 Street Glide. I have my oil and my transmission right here. So what I do is I pop those off, and I check for proper, making sure I got enough in there, making sure that, it's not too dirty and whatnot. My rule of thumb, when I'm doing oils anyway, I change all my fluids out every 5,000 miles. Now, you don't have to do that. The service manual doesn't tell you to do that. But I do that anyway just to make sure. So every 5,000 miles, I'm changing my engine oil, my transmission, and my primary fluid as well. Every 5,000 miles, I change all those fluids just to make sure I keep the bike in tip-top shape as far as fluids are concerned. Your brake fluid, it's recommended you change those out. You change that out every 2 years, especially for this model. Other models might differ, but for me, they say every 2 years. I change that. I change that about 2 to 3 years, really, because you can go longer on those. So it all depends how much you ride, really. All right. You want to check for leaks, okay? So this is the part where you're getting under your bike, and you want to make sure everything's bolted up correctly and you have no leaks. What I do to ensure that I don't have any leaks is I go ahead and turn it on and just look first, see if I got any leaks. If there's no leaks, upon startup after a couple, like 2-3 minutes, I take it out for a quick ride, and then I come back and I leave it on and I recheck to make sure to see if there's anything dripping below the bike. So that way I can head it off before it gets any worse. All right. So like I said, engine oil, your transmission, your primary, check all the levels, making sure there's no leaks in those. If you have, your hydraulic fluid, coolant fluid, if you have radiators, and of course, last but not least, your fuel, making sure you got good fuel in there, and making sure there's no leaks within your gas tank itself. All right, the second C in T-CLOCS, stands for chassis. Now, for chassis, what you're looking at is your frame, your suspension, whether you have a chain or belt, and then all fasteners, all right? As far as frames, you want to check the condition of your frame. You want to check the steering head bearings and your swing arm bushings, making sure those are all properly adjusted and set in place to where it needs to be in order to have, of course, the bike in tip-top shape. All right, making sure you're checking for any cracks, gussets, accessory mounts. Look for any paints that's out of place, whatnot, on your frame. And I always go from rear to front, and then from front to rear. Double check everything. So same thing with the suspension. You want to check your front forks, okay, making sure you have smooth travel, making sure your forks are equal, the pressure, the dampening, and then all your settings for your forks, and checking those fluids as well. All right. For your chain and your belt, what you're looking for is tension, okay, lubrication, and you're checking sprockets. All right, you're checking for tightness. You're checking for properly, like I said, lubrication on it, and making sure that your sprockets, your teeth are not hooked or they are securely mounted. All right, and then fasteners, you're checking the threads. All right, clips and pins, making sure there's nothing missing. They're nice and tight on there, and they're not broken. If so, then of course you need replacements for those. All right, we get down to the end. Last but not least is the S&T-CLOCS, stands for stands. Okay, what you want to check is your side stand, and if you have a center stand as well. All right, you want to check the condition, making sure you don't see any cracks or bends, making sure your retention springs are in place and they're properly free flowing. Okay, also checking the tension to make sure that it's held in properly when not in use. I have both. I have my side stand and I have an electric center stand. So I do check both of those for the proper, usage before I get out on the roads too. So I mean, I got both, so it kind of works out for me. Sometimes I've been caught out there where my center stand didn't work. I got my side stand as secondary, or vice versa. So those are all the things you want to do. So that's T-CLOCS in a nutshell. Like I said, I put it up at the beginning. I'm going to put the inspection checklist on my descriptions, so that way you all can download it yourself and keep it on hand. What I recommend is that you do this at least on a monthly basis. You don't just have to do it when you're going out for a long distance ride, but I recommend at least on a monthly basis you go and do a good in-depth review of your entire bike, just to make sure. Like I said, you don't want to be caught out there on the road and you got nothing. All right. Another good thing to have. All right. Always ride with a toolkit. Okay, it doesn't matter how big or how small. Just make sure you got the proper tools. So I always keep my toolkit in my saddlebag. It's not a small toolkit. It's fairly big toolkit. That's what she said. But I usually keep it in there because I got all the tools that will fit for my bike. So if anything happens, out on the road, I can at least make an attempt to fix or adjust things on the fly if need be. Okay? If need be. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hop back on the bike and I'm going to take you out there. So I'll see you on the road.
All right. How did you all enjoy that? That walkthrough of what I do before I conduct my long distance rides. I figured this was the perfect opportunity to talk about this. It's we're in winter, but spring is around the corner. Spring is around the corner. Yes. So, in case some of you have never performed this or conduct what I talked through, or some of you are newer riders and plan on riding longer distances this spring and summer coming up for 2022, why not get prepared now? Why not do this stuff now and then do it on a regular basis so that you all can get used to it, so when the time comes, you know what you have to do in order to prepare for that long distance ride. So that was it for today's episode. So if you like this content, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Comment down below. All right, and most importantly, subscribe and share with other people you think might be interested in this content, or not. Whatever floats your boat. But yes sir. That's all I have for today. I'm gonna go ahead and keep on riding, and as always, enjoy your ride.